Hey, Mark.
Hey Tony, I can't stay late. But,
It's hard to hear you.
I'm not sure I can stay late for this meeting, but I was at the Metropolitan Beaches Commission meeting for a while. Just me and Vi that were there on the Nahant. So, but they had some questions. I can answer them later.
Okay, I'll connect with you on that.
Okay,
Your camera's on.
is it?
Yep. Yep. There you go. Now it's off. Hi, Nancy.
Okay, first question. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, Nancy, I'm so glad.
But
Oh,
Lynn is muted and she's
Lynn's
talking.
muted and she's talking up a storm.
No, I was saying I apologize for being late to this meeting. So glad to be in the meeting.
Yeah,
And
me too. Now, let's see. Where is my gizmo here? Here it is.
okay, so I am Lynn Spencer. I am calling this the meeting to order for the Nahant's Community Preservation Committee. Joining me tonight as members of the committee are Paul Spurn, who is just eating his dinner.
Yep, sorry.
Nathan, Nancy Catamo, Jim Dolan is on, Austin Antrim, Dave Wilson. Wow, we've got a crew. So, and it's good to see you in person. Hey, Jim.
Ellen Goldberg.
And Ellen Goldberg.
Yeah, and Ellen, I said, yeah, sorry, I missed her. Anyway, we also have joining us tonight, Deborah Warren, who is the FinCom representative to our committee. Barbara Beatty was unable to join us, but we certainly welcome you, Deborah. We have a very full agenda tonight, and as you saw, I was trying to assign time frames to this because we have always the sincere hope that we can have our meetings be an hour and a half long, not much longer. So I also want to welcome members of the public. I see actually Julie Tarmy's here. That's great. And certainly Tony Barletta, because you, Tony, are going to be first up after we have a moment to look at the minutes or discuss the minutes from the February 5th meeting, which inadvertently didn't get out for the last meeting, but I had sent them out on Sunday to you, and I'm hoping that you've had a chance to look at them. And if you have, I'd be interested in any comments on the minutes. Any corrections? There were no votes taken, but there were notes notes provided on some of the commentary that we had on the grant applications. So hearing no comments so far, I would be looking for a motion to accept the minutes.
Motion to accept the minutes, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Second.
Got a second?
Yep.
All those in favor of accepting the minutes from February 5th? I'll do a roll call on this. Paul,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Minutes accepted. Right. So let's jump into, we have several grant applications that have not had the chance for the first round of reviews with the committee. So I'd like to invite Tony Barletta to join us to talk about the town of Nahant's application for the Heritage Trail, the section that runs through Goddard Drive.
Thank you very much.
So Tony,
Hey.
the floor is yours.
Thank you. I sent an email this afternoon with some information, but essentially this is a 50-foot section of the Heritage Trail from Goddard Drive down. There's steps that go down towards the community garden. The town is actively pursuing sale of the Coast Guard housing properties. We haven't put them up for sale yet, but we're going through that process. We've already completed demolition on all 9 vacant properties. And the goal of this application was to clearly mark and identify this section of the Heritage Trail. So it matches the surrounding park areas and it protects it from potential encroachment issues once the abutting properties sell. Simply put, it's a 50-foot section that with 10 feet wide, that our vision would be to line it with split rail fence on either side, install fabric and stone dust, probably about a 6-foot wide section, leaving a couple feet on either end for the fencing and potential plantings. We could also, sorry.
That's the part about these meetings we love, Tony. It's fine.
I can't, I got one of them's upstairs, one of them's downstairs, so I can't get away, but there's funding in here is for the fencing, for the stone dust, for plantings, and then potentially the stairs going down. They're just railroad tie stairs that need, that have stone dust in between them. So either repairing those completely or just reinstalling new railroad tie steps there. The grant application was for $20,000. If the town does this in-house with DPW, I think we can accomplish it for less than $10,000. The material cost, the estimated cost of materials at what I just described to you is less than $10,000. It's probably somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000. But once you get out there, you don't know what you might run into. You don't know if if we want to do some signage or some other work. So you give a little bit of a buffer. If we were to hire a contractor to do this with prevailing wage rates, I think, you're looking more at like $15,000 to $20,000. Obviously we would try to do it in-house. So if the CPC, if the committee, at the end of the puzzle of trying to allocate your total budget is looking for areas to trim. This grant, I think you could trim 10,000 off of it, and we would try to accomplish this project in-house.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you, Tony. I'm sorry, I've been in the field all day, so I didn't get a chance to see your email from today, but other committee members, did you have a chance to look at it? Or do you have any other any questions or comments about Tony's presentation?
Lynn, excuse me, this is what Tony sent us today. Can you see it? Heritage Trail at Goddard Drive.
Not yet.
Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. That's too bad. Oh dear. Let's see. Come on. Oh,
Can I ask you a question, in the
There it
meantime,
is.
Tony?
Yep.
Is there not, split rail fencing on either side of that walk going up the hill now?
No.
When you get to Tri-Mountain Park area, there's split rail fence in that area. This is from Goddard Drive to the steps down to like the community garden. So it's a 10-foot wide, 50-foot long section that cuts in between the Coast Guard housing properties.
Okay,
So that's why split rail, would match the surrounding park areas. And we use split rail a lot now, like at the entrance to Doggy Beach, near at the Lowlands parking lot. It's become kind of like a standard for us.
How durable is that, Tony?
It's easy maintenance, easy repair. It lasts pretty good, but to replace it or to make repairs is simple. So
Okay.
it's a nice setup for us.
Okay.
And we're not trying to, it's not, we're not attempting to block sight of the path. If we were to do plantings, we're talking about medium to small size shrubs. I don't think the abutters or the neighborhood would want, a 6-foot fence or 10-foot shrubs, blocking the view of the path. I think you want to be able to see, activity that's occurring on it. But this would, dress it up.
So Tony, is this land actually being, in terms of the subdivision, is this land being retained by the town as
It is.
the past? Okay, so this is clearly going to be town-owned property. The
Mhm.
fence is going to be on the town-owned section of this, so to speak.
Yes.
Okay. Other questions or comments for Tony on this? Well, seeing and hearing none, we'll sort of take your proposal, your comments about the possible cost savings under advisement as we consider sort of the overall picture of the funding allocations. Right. So next up is back to you, Tony, which is discussing the beach access proposal. And interestingly enough, we had two proposals, one from the town of Nahant, submitted by Tony, and another from Josie Reese as a citizen. So Tony, and I don't know if Josie is on the call as well.
I don't see her.
I don't see her. But perhaps, Tony, you can tell us a little bit about what's happening. I think we were encouraging you to be in touch with Josie. So tell us more about it.
Yes, and her and I have had a couple conversations. our applications overlap in many ways, and her application goes a little bit further than the town's in some ways. I expressed to her the comments that I received from the committee, and she's open to withdrawing her application and joining with the town's application. But there was, some elements of her application that wasn't included in mine that would increase my request. Essentially, we both talked about boardwalks and mats, which help ADA access at the beaches. Some beaches are doable, some beaches are not. For instance, 40 steps, it would make no sense to add a boardwalk or a mat at the bottom of 40 steps, because it's nearly impossible for, even me to get down there without breathing heavy. Canoe Beach is certainly somewhere we could try it. Short Beach is somewhere we could try it. One of the areas that Josie really talked about was the end of the right of way on Gardner Road. When you get through the path, it becomes very rocky there. So my application included 3 30-foot sections of mat or boardwalk. And I believe that we could, she's on board with us, using these funds to purchase 3 and maybe 4 if there's additional money left over, 30-foot sections, and seeing how they work in these different areas. Some mats are, the tough part is going to be really like, where the high tide mark hits on the beach. You generally, I think we have concerns about, wave action negatively impacting a boardwalk or a mat. Some of these mats are made to absorb some of that wave energy, but we're not sure how that would work in some of these applications. So the idea would be to almost test it out. And she was okay with that. She was in favor of that approach. And these would be rolled out in a seasonal application.
Thank you.
The other 2 that also in my application was wheelchair, beach ADA compliant wheelchairs. So that was factored into my budget. That wasn't in hers, but she loves that idea. There's the logistics of how we would make those available, or to people who want to use them, would still need to be worked out. We could do, and I'll pause on that. I'll come back to it. I'm sure there's some questions. There's a couple different ideas on how we could handle that. But the biggest part that was different from her application to mine was improving ADA access at Tudor Beach. Tudor Beach, with the wall there and the ramp that's existing, there really isn't ADA compliant access. There, we didn't include it in ours because we thought it was, to do it right, it would be a challenge. But after speaking with Zach and speaking with Josie, we think that we could potentially explore a matching ramp that matches to the seasonal stairways that we currently put in. They're custom fabricated, galvanized green iron products that we could, we're ballparking. I think in my email, I put at around $15,000. Zach is going to have the company who made the stairways, come out and take a look and give us a better idea. But we think 15's on the higher end. He might be able to fabricate something for us even less than that. And the idea would be where the granite steps are on Tudor Beach, right at the crosswalk after the Valley Road exit. We could, abutting those stairways, we'd have to cut back the railing a little bit, but have a, a platform and a ramp that goes to the left, where if you're standing there right now, the stairs go down to the right. That we could, install on a seasonal basis. That would be ADA compliant. It's not too far of a distance down.
It's not? I mean, honestly, I go up and down those stairs a fair
Are you
amount
not
in
at
the
Winter
winter.
Street, but not the granite ones? There's only like 3-4 steps there.
Yeah, but they're steep.
Yeah, so I mean, we're gonna see what they'll quote us at. Obviously, we're gonna want something that is a little bit longer, so that if the sand, if the elevation of the beach changes, it's, the ramp isn't sticking up out of the ground. But the idea would be to, get a quote for that. I think we'd be able to get a quote for that before you send anything to the finance committee for consideration.
Mhm.
But on the high end, we're estimating, 15 for that. Again, I really want to hold on the price because that's just Zach and I looking at what we spent on the custom stairways. So if I add that,
So could I just hold for a second? The depth from the upper grade down to the beach is got to be 4 feet, maybe 5 feet. So if we're looking at a ramp to be ADA compliant, let's call it 5 feet. It's going to be 60 feet long.
Exactly.
Who just said exactly?
I
Oh,
did. I was gonna,
Oh, town hall. Yeah, okay,
yeah,
you're
town
town
hall
hall.
just said that.
So
I'm town hall.
it's a good stretch. Is all I'm just suggesting.
yeah, well, there seems to be a legitimate, a significant level of support for exploring improved ADA access to Tudor
Mhm.
Beach.
Yep.
This seems like an approach that, wouldn't require major permitting, like installing a cement permanent ramp.
Right. Yep.
Something that is seasonal. So
Yeah.
I do want
I
to
think
hold.
so you're suggesting you'd like to actually hold this as something to explore, and you're going to try to do that before we actually go to FinCom. Okay.
Right. So at the last sentence of my paragraph here was, I think if you could probably remove Josie's application, increase hours to 50. So that's, I think we asked for 30. She asked, I think, for 100.
You actually asked for 25, but fine. So you want to go to 50.
And I think she asked for 100. Is that right?
75 and a 25 match.
Correct.
Yeah. So, but she had $100,000 full budget. So
I wasn't aware of the match. I don't know where the match was coming from, and I didn't ask her if that was still a possibility.
it was just what you put on her application. So we put it
Okay.
into our spreadsheet.
So I can follow up on that.
Yeah.
Find out if that's still, what that funding source is.
Yeah, the match would be a nice part of this picture.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to sum up, I think I'm hearing beach mats for canoe, short, and did you say the end of Gardner Road?
Yeah, there's a right of way that goes out to the beach back there.
Committee, do you all know what he's talking about? 'Cause
No.
I
don't.
do.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Help
yeah, I
us.
do. Yeah.
Okay, good. Help us. Where is it?
It used to be the old firehouse at the end of Goddard Drive. The town owns it and we maintain it. so you can walk out to the
Gardner Road.
Gardner Road.
Dave.
If you
It's at the
come,
very bottom of the hill, straight ahead. It
Yep,
runs along
straight
a
ahead.
fence, goes down to the beach.
it's in between Bass Point Apartments property where they have that open green space,
Yeah.
literally right at the bottom of Gardner Road, and that first house.
Isn't that interesting? I've lived in that neighborhood for how long and I've never known that. So thank you.
Do we have an idea of how much that's used?
And I don't have any real data. No.
It used to be done a lot, because when I was working for the town, I had to go out there and grade it, because the people were complaining they couldn't walk to the beach. So
Okay,
it's pretty level and it's really trimmed back.
Well, thanks, Dave. It's helpful to hear this firsthand knowledge. So we've got the idea of the seasonal beach mats at those 3 locations. We've got the idea that you will explore handicapped access via a ramp from down to Tudor Beach, and that you are also considering, is it 2 wheelchair
Yes.
beach chairs?
Yes. And for something like for Short Beach, if you picture the ramp, the access point across from the parking lot, the Lowlands parking lot, the middle access
Yep.
point.
Yep.
And what Josie talked about, I understand her point, is that even if those, people who are, struggle, walking down the ramp, but they make it, the soft sand can be hard for them to walk across. So the idea would be potentially running a mat to the end of the soft sand where the high water mark is. So then it allows, folks who get to the bottom of the ramp to walk, across the soft sand on a somewhat hard surface and get to the harder sand. Again, it'll be kind of a trial to see how it works.
So Tony, there was a section of a beach mat. I don't know if it's the same type of what you're describing that was used to provide access to the restrooms in the garage of the life-saving station. So
Similar. They've come a long way since then. That mat, I remember, was not very popular because it wasn't very satisfying to bare feet. But we also have a boardwalk style mat at the Little Nahant entrance currently that people love. That's a similar product, but it's actually made of like a Trex decking.
I see. So is that the kind of thing you're thinking about for these mats?
Yeah, I would want to, again, it depends. I want to look further into, which mats perform better in the particular, so Canoe Beach is more rocky. I don't know if a boardwalk style mat would do well with a rocky surface below it or not. So
Yeah.
we'd have to kind of apply the information we get later on these different material mats and what type of beaches they best work on.
Tony, how do you anticipate, providing and securing the wheelchairs?
So I think the worst case scenario, hold on a second. The worst case scenario, I'm going to walk and talk, would be a setup where we, store the wheelchairs inside, like in some storage at the town of Nahant, whether that be, at the DPW or somewhere else, and on a reservation type basis said, I'm, going to be at Tudor Beach this weekend on Saturday. And if they, registered during the week for use of it, we could arrange for drop off and pick up through the DPW. that idea, I say worst case because I think that would work, but it's not ideal as far as customer service goes, because you might not know, ahead of time that you're gonna be going to the beach. You might
Right.
not think about it
Right.
beforehand.
Right.
Plus, there's logistically, DPW could get pulled into some other emergency and then, it fall through that way.
Yep.
The other way of doing it could be having them seasonally stored outdoors at a particular beach or location and have you could do some sort of locking, some sort of lock system there that if somebody reserved ahead of time, they give us a deposit, we give them the code to the lock. And then as long as they lock it back up, they get their deposit back. Lastly, probably the most convenient, but the highest challenge would be to have a locking system that was on demand. So, you go up to where it's stored and let's say you put a credit card in, it opens the lock. When you lock it back, it gives you your credit card back, at no charge, but it just is something that ensures that it gets relocked. That would be ideal because it's on demand at the time, but there's a lot of other challenges that come with that. It might require electrical hookup, it might need roof coverage, so those logistics are things that we'd have to work out. But those are a couple different ideas.
Thank you. Other questions and comments from the committee to Tony?
I'm familiar with the beach mats, both at Plum Island and on many of the beaches on Cape Cod, where they're left up all year round, which obviously is great because those people can have access all year round. But obviously those are bigger beaches and we would have more, impact. So that may not be applicable to, to us, that we would maybe have to pick them up because our beaches are so short and the storms are more frequent, but.
Exactly. Yeah, that you're spot on, Nancy.
Yeah. Anyone else? So what I've got out of this is a revised application to $50,000. I have the consolidation of your application with Josie Reese's, very, I think, forward-thinking application to provide accessible beaches to our community. We're going to do some testing on this. And there's some things to work out, such as how wheelchairs are being allocated and so on. But I think that for now, we appreciate your thinking on this, Tony, and for your coordination with Josie on the application.
So I just have one question is, would the committee prefer a new application be submitted once I get the quote on the Tudor Beach ramp?
I think that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Because I'd like to put it on record. I mean, we have our summary, but the applications, in fact, are the basis of our consideration for
I
the town
figured
warrant.
that. Yeah, right. It usually says consistent with the application submitted, so that's why I asked.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
I do have one question, if that's okay. Have you given, what kind of thought have you given to like the work plan in terms of like, once it's done and you decide the logistics and how you're gonna manage it and everything, in terms of like communications and outreach to the community to engage them and let them know that this is happening and available? Is there any thought to that when it comes to the proposal, or are you just focused on the actual nuts and bolts of getting it done and you'll figure that part out later?
I do tend to hold some stuff until later because it's dependent on if this gets approved at town meeting. So
Mhm.
to be fair, you know, when I have somewhat limited time to work some of the details out, you know, it's like, all right, I'll come back to that if this gets approved.
Yeah,
But I've thought at a high level, I've thought about it. You know, we could put signage up at the beaches with a picture of, I think you're talking about the wheelchairs, you know, that
Yes.
would,
right.
obviously, if the wheelchairs are stored at the beach, then people will see them and know, but
Yeah,
if they're not, you know, some sort of signage, some sort of you know, adding it to our website, promoting, you know, the process, um,
I mean,
those types of things.
even a nice press release would be good just to get some
Yeah.
positive, you know, if this goes through, a press release announcing, you know, Nahant adding accessibility with community preservation funds and, you know, making the beaches accessible to everybody, I think it's good.
Yeah.
It's good outreach and it's good publicity.
Yep.
We've definitely improved in that area. In recent, you know, we did, usually Austin tends to be the ceremonial ribbon cutter at these events, but we've actually got to hold a few of them, and it's been great press.
Yeah.
Good point, though. I think communicating this is going to be important. But let's develop the plan. If you could revise your application so we have, you know, the correct verbiage and dollars, that would be much appreciated.
Okay.
So Tony, I do have you here for the Beach or Flash Road Recreational Master Plan. But before that, I wanted to give Gary Dinas, in terms of the agenda I had laid out, the opportunity for the discussion on the HOTS cyber project. Gary, are you on the call?
He just emailed us saying that he was logging on, so,
We'll give him a minute
yeah.
because I said come in at 7:40 and he's got 2 minutes for that.
Exactly.
I don't have much on the rec plan. I could probably do it in 2 minutes.
Well, all right, you've got 2 minutes. Go for it,
All
Tony.
right, I spoke with Trish Aldridge, chairwoman of the Open Space Committee. We talked about, you know, the support around the idea of doing a master plan. And we talked a lot about, you know, the importance of the scope of work with any consultant, emphasizing the need for them to really take the lead on informational materials and the public process. So I believe the Open Space Committee is on board, so long as I make sure that's included in any scope of work. And I reached out to Ty and Bond. I spoke with Brian. His last name is escaping me. They're working on Dedham. They're working on a project, a green space project in Dedham. He does a lot of work like this on behalf of municipalities.
Mhm.
He's gonna provide a scope. I talked to him for probably an hour,
Okay.
going over all the different things that we talked about in the previous meeting. He did think that the original estimate that I included was low. A ballpark number was $50,000 or $55,000. He's going away on vacation next week, so he wouldn't be able to give us a scope of work a draft scope of work until the week after, which cuts close to your schedule. I know, but I did get a ballpark number. We talked immensely about the public process and, you know, them needing, I told them we don't have a town planner, we don't have a town engineer, we don't have a community engagement director. The Open Space Committee would be part of the public meetings. They could post them. with the clerk, and they could help with any sort of like, charrettes or engagement with the public that are in attendance. But, as far as surveys, flyers, website, mapping, all of those details, we really need them to take the lead on it. He fully understood that. As far as like schedule goes, I explained to him that if approved, we could sign a contract shortly after town meeting, but that in the summertime, I explained to him, people who live in Nahant for the summer. So public engagement tends to slow down a little bit in those beautiful months in the middle of the summer. So it could be an introduction at the beginning of the summer, and then let them do a lot of that background work, and then kind of re-engage late summer, early fall
Barry, you having
on the
trouble getting
community
in?
engagement side. So it was a really good conversation. I got a ballpark number. I won't have a scope of work for another 2 weeks,
While you do that,
but
I will try to find it.
an open space committee would like to review that scope of work before they give, I think, their, true stamp of approval. But I think we're heading in the right direction.
Make that work.
So, okay, so Paul, did
Yeah,
you meet your,
Gary Dines just called me, Lynn,
oh, okay, good.
and he's trying to get in, and I told him to try the community calendar. Does anybody know whether that worked this week?
No, it didn't.
It didn't work.
Not
The
for
link-
me.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, we'll try something.
Tell him to go to zoom.com, click join, and then enter the meeting ID that's on the community calendar.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
No, that's too complicated.
Yeah, Paul, if you would just send him, I went to your email because I couldn't get it to work from the community calendar. That's why I was late.
Okay, so you went to my
Just tell,
email.
tell Gary I'm gonna respond to his latest email with the link, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Ellen's to the rescue. She's going to email you the link. All you got to do is click on it.
Okay.
No, I'm not the best. Ellen's the best.
Yep.
You're doing good.
Okay. All right. I'm going to pull this back to Tony now. Okay. So we're getting Gary in the process. Thank you, Ellen and Paul, for doing that. So Tony, I think what I just heard is that you've had a positive conversation with an experienced planner from Ty and Bond, that you have a ballpark figure estimate of 60, was it 60,000 or 50?
He said he thought that they could do it for 50 or 55.
Okay, fine. And would we also still be applying that $11,000 that we had carried for the Heritage Trail section through?
I think that would be a good way to do it.
Yeah, okay.
But that means, all that money plus any new money would be going towards this planning process rather than
Right.
actual construction of
And
anything.
that was planning money, by the way. That was really for planning and design.
Okay, so it's in line with that. Yep.
It is in line. I think your application made a lot of sense from that point of view. And I think Kevin Andrew had agreed with that conceptually. So we can look at that. I would also say Ty and Bond is one of several firms. Is this going to have to go to designer selection, or what's the town's view on this selection process?
I'll have to double check that. Let me get back to you on that. I think what we might have to do for something like this is we might have to do. I don't want to guess. Let me double check it.
Yeah, do that. But I think what we had said is talk to a firm like Ty and Bond that could do this, just so you understood what the budget and the implications and the process would be. So I appreciate that you've done that. We also had said, coordinate with open space, and it appears that you've been able to do that. So good for you. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
So committee, other questions or comments for Tony on the Flash Road Master Plan proposal at this
I have
time?
a question, Nancy. I was approached by someone who had worked on the previous set of plans, like 2016 or something, which included
Right.
stuff on Flash Road. And I assume that if we had a public process prior to the summer or something, that those ideas could be brought up at that point. Would that be reasonable?
I think that those ideas could be brought up at any point in the public process. Yeah,
They just wanted
I-
to make sure, since work had been done, that somehow there was consideration to those thoughts.
I mean, they can be brought up during the public process for sure. I think I talked to him about reviewing previous approved plans, like the open space master plan that you guys just completed. I can share with him the 2016 plan you're referring to. But I think it would be on the residents to, advocate for those once again through this process.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Tony. Committee members, other questions or comments for Tony at this time? Tony, we appreciate your attendance tonight. You are welcome to continue joining us, or you could go put those kids to bed.
I'll stay on. I'm going to turn my camera and microphone
Okay.
off though.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Tony. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
So next on their agenda is we're returning to the proposal for Nahant's, well, gosh, let me make sure that I correctly call this the Nahant Cyber Proposal, making Nahant the cyber worker capital of the world, which is one of the more modest proposals that I've come across in a while. So, Gary, when we last met with you, we said we are concerned. In fact, I think I expressed skepticism as to whether this proposal met the allowable costs and activities of community preservation funding.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Paul, for getting that on the screen. Gary, I know that you've responded with your
Yes.
thoughts on this.
Yes.
I'll give you just a few minutes to say anything that you want to say before we go into a committee discussion.
Can you bring up my document? Are you capable of doing that?
Yeah, it's quite long. Hold on. I gotta get it back from the email.
Okay.
Why don't you start talking in advance?
Okay. In general, my proposal is quite simple, that our community is physical and cyber at the same time, and that historically we've been focused on the physical primarily, and like say physical 90% and cyber 10%, and we're out of touch with the present and the future. And what we want to do is start preserving and documenting and recording and advancing our cyber capabilities here in Nahant. Now, everyone is asking me, why am I applying for funds from the community, preservation grant? The key thing to understand here is this is a community activity. No single person can do it. It's the collective mindware of the people in our community and understanding of the people in our community in terms of how to use the cyberspace productively for our community. To preserve what's gone on in the past and to use that as a basis to build on and go on into the future. And I agree, this is a vision, but it's actually not that difficult of we all use the cyberspace and we all struggle with the cyberspace. And none of us are as competent in the cyberspace as we need to be. And the community is not as competent in the cyberspace as we need to be. Imagine if I could be looking at the original documents from the Ice King, Tudor, and what he was thinking about and doing his stuff. And we're thinking about at the village church to invite Harvard in to open the debate about intelligent design and natural selection. And imagine if Louis Agassiz was the major scientist that argued against Darwin's ideas. imagine if I could have access to his lectures on that. Those are all ideas, cyber insight, intellect that has occurred in this very smart community, and we're not taking action to preserve it, and we're not taking action to protect it. And so that's the gist of the concept. Now, I run into difficulties in terms of explaining this to people for a couple of different reasons. But I think the real reason that people are having problems with it is that it goes everywhere. It goes into business, it goes into churches, it goes into trails, because everything is physical and cyber at the same time. So I'm talking about, we do the cyber piece well now, and there's not a lot we have to do. The hardware is in place, the applications are in place, the knowledge is in place. We just have to bring it together into specific things that we want to work on. So yes, we'll do all these stuff, but if to get started, if all I have to do is help the Nahant Historical Society, and I meet that criteria, then I'll just help the Nahant Historical Society and meet that criteria, and we'll let other people, do things that they need to do. But it's easy for me to see this because I have 50 years of computer experience and 50 years of cognitive science experience. So this is like a no-brainer for me. And I understand how difficult it is for me to communicate it and for you to get your minds around it. But I can say categorically, the time is right now. And we have this opportunity and we should take advantage of it. And there'll be a lot of people that don't understand it, and that's okay. We just communicate.
Oh, no, Gary, it's not okay. It has to be well understood.
Okay, we communicate it to them.
So,
It's that
okay.
easy.
You have to communicate it to us first.
I'm doing that right now.
No, you're not. You're
not.
talking and we're listening, but I'm not understanding.
So ask me a question.
No. I want you to explain in 3 sentences exactly what you're going to do with this money.
I'm going to become the cyber czar. I'm going to assemble the community that is interested in dimensions of the cyber space preservation and advancement.
Okay.
And we're going to get together and collectively link the hardware, the software, and the mindware into these specific applications. And it's all going to be, right now everyone's doing their own thing and they're selecting wrong pieces and they're going to have to redo it. So we're going to do it right collectively as a community. That's Nahant Cyber. So it's like Amazon, what Amazon did with retail.
Gary, you're making analogies to something without building the foundation of what it is you're trying to explain. So please don't go to the analogy unless it really clarifies.
Okay. I tried to clarify with it. Okay, so you would agree the knowledge and mindset inside the heads of people in our community is a real thing?
No, it is not. It isn't open space. It isn't a historic resource. It isn't recreational land, and it isn't community housing. You've got to start somewhere else.
Well, no, I didn't ask that question. I'm building to that. You agree it's a real thing. The knowledge inside the head of Nahanters is a real thing.
Okay, fine.
Okay?
Yep.
And it's something that needs to be preserved and advanced in a community fashion.
That is an extraordinarily important community resource. Right. I agree with you completely.
Right. Okay. And so I'm proposing that we have the skill in town and the motivation in town to do that in a formalized way. Doesn't cost us much money, and it significantly advances the historical preservation and the creation of intellect in Nahant.
Intellect is not one of the 4 categories where we can invest town funds. under this act.
Okay, here's where I disagree, because everything you do is physical and intellectual at the same time. I'm just focusing in on the intellectual and then doing the physical. So the boulder thing has a physical thing associated,
Right,
and it also has a design and it has a cyber part of it, an intellectual part of it. Everything we do has that is done is physical and ideological cyber at the same time.
right. But the physical substance has to meet one of these four criteria.
Sure. So let's just focus in on the history. Okay, that's one of the criteria, right?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So I am right now creating a document going through this whole process. I'm going to be submitting it to the Historical Society. So we have documentation of what we went through and the problems we had, and we're preserving it. So I'm simultaneously using the cyberspace to create it so it can now be automatically preserved. Okay, so just on that one point alone, it's directly related to it.
So I guess what I'm going to do is jump in here and just read out loud for everyone's benefit what the definition is of historic resources according to community preservation in this act, which is a building, structure, vessel, real property, document, or artifact listed on the State Register of Historic Places or determined by the local Historic Preservation Commission to be significant in the history, archaeology, architecture, and culture of the city or town.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
So I
the
appreciate
documentation-
that. I appreciate that, Gary, but I have to say that I, who have been involved with this for some 20 years and am open to visionary ideas,
Thank you for your service.
find
by the way.
it hard to be persuaded that your grant application meets the criteria of allowable costs under this act.
Except you
I will
stated
just finish,
Yeah.
please. So I was so concerned about this that I sent it along, your application and your supporting documents, to the executive director of the Community Preservation Coalition to say, help
Nicely
me,
done. Nicely done.
help me, you know, have we got anything here? And quite honestly, he wrote back saying he's never seen anything like this. So congratulations, Gary, unique, one of a kind. I'll give you that. But it doesn't meet the state's mandate in terms of this act. We certainly would encourage you to look at other funding sources.
Notice, stop there. The first, that's exactly what you should have done. Thank you so much for doing that.
Sure
Because
thing.
we don't want to do anything innovative without crossing our T's and dotting our I's. Second, give me his email and I will, he's going to be like you guys are. He's never heard of it before. But
It's all right, because at this point, you know, you can go onto the coalition website. At this point, though, I am feeling very reluctant to take this forward, but I really want to hear from other committee members who have been pondering this now for several weeks and also shared some of these concerns.
Hi, Lynn. Jimmy Dolan here. I'm happy to jump in only because I have a lot of questions that I tried to get my arms around. So Gary, one, thanks for putting it together. I guess the question that would help me wrap my arms around it is, if this was successful in a year from now, what would be produced? How would we be able to look back on this and have something tangible that had been created?
Everything that we do in this community that's done physically has a cyber part to it. So this group of people that I'm putting together, they will, with input from others, they'll determine, you know, what are the things we do first. One example I gave in my document was, I know Tom Costa, and he's explained to me over the years the kind of life he's lived and the experience he's had, and it's unbelievable. And for us not to record that and document that in a memorial, so we can do that, create software that allows his family to bring all those things together, all those pieces of paper, those historical documents together into a website, they can do it themselves. The software today is as easy as a word processor. So they can bring all that together, put it into a website, and we can have the software. So when you go to Tom's gravesite, you just pull out your cell phone and you go Nahant Cyber Memorial, and all of a sudden all that information about Tom pops up. We are preserving. He's one of the greats in the greatest generation, and he related with the real greats, the Kennedys and the Johnsons of that generation. And for us to allow that to slip by, I've known other people in Nahant that interviewed Amelia Earhart. They just unbelievable stories. That's gone because we're not preserving that. We want to preserve that intellectual history in Nahant. So that's just a simple example. The grave committee. We could have a system that they give out to families where they can electronically document a memorial of the person's life. And once they do that, we've got it forever. Disk space is so cheap, it never goes away.
So it's very interesting, Gary, because I'm reflecting on the work that Calantha Sears started decades ago with collecting oral histories, sort of capturing those memories, in this case in audio form and sometimes in video. I think Jimmy was bringing up a very important point. What is going to be produced from this? And I want to be very clear. I find this a fascinating set of ideas. I just am struggling to say that it actually meets our particular grant criteria. But Jimmy, you had other questions. Perhaps go at it.
Well, that's really helpful, and I agree with the significance of recording that type of personal experience. But I guess I don't make the connection between the historic resources and that. It seems to be different.
He's a historical figure. If you get to know Tom, you look at the stuff he's got. Jack Kennedy actually gave him a lot of things, and that's they're in his house. They're on the wall in his house, and there's a story being told there that is part of the history of Nahant. Tudor, the Ice King, there's a story that should have been told there. We've had a lot of great people in this town, and we continue to attract smart people in this town. This is intellectual history that needs to be recorded. And I love, Lynn, what you just said. Calantha does this. I just listened to an hour presentation that she made in the village church that was incredibly inspiring about 100 years, I think she called it. And that's the kind of stuff that we want to do here. So that one point alone, we hit, directly nail on the head. That one point. And
Other committee members, I would like to give you the opportunity to raise your thoughts and concerns.
Hello, Lynn, it's Austin.
Hi, Austin.
Gary and everyone. So I just want to disclose, I've known Gary and his wonderful family for my entire life. I grew up with his daughter, Allison. And so I reached out to Gary yesterday, asking if he would speak to me a little further about his application prior to this meeting. So he did that. I spoke with him today for a little while. And he tried to articulate his ideas to me, which I agree with Lynn. They're fantastic ideas. And I tried to express how I didn't believe that the application was eligible for CPA funding, although, that shouldn't be taken as, not supporting his ideas or his enthusiasm. It just, but Gary had, explained or tried to explain to me his, how he believes it does relate to the categories here. So after our conversation, I didn't feel I had quite prepared myself well enough. So I reread the legislation itself and the definitions. And to me, it's very clear in the legislation that projects that get funded by Community Preservation Act funds. When they define open space, they define it as land. When they define historic resources, they define it as Lynn read. It's objects and property and tangible things.
Right.
Same with recreational land and housing, and even supportive housing is sort of direct financial support to have some affordable housing in the town. So all of those items are defined very clearly in the legislation. I just do not see how this application is eligible for those funds here.
So
Thank you.
Austin, you have to exclude them all. I just described one that it hit the nail on the head. So all I need is one.
But I guess what I'm having difficulty putting my arms around is that specific example is about a person, right, who is obviously, you mentioned like the greatest of the greatest generation, but it doesn't, is Lynn, am I reading this wrong about historic resources? Help me make the connection between historic resources, what Austin mentioned, and this specific example as it relates to preserving that individual's experience in the same way Calantha did.
Yeah. I'm challenged by it too, Jimmy. I just am. I mean, it is this divide between the tangible and the intangible. We have funded a number of preservation projects in Nahant, including the preservation of documents, historic documents, but they're tangible. The oral history program that Calantha started is, an initiative of the Historical Society and has been done by the Historical Society. And I think this kind of falls into that kind of category. It's just not hitting our funding resources. The other thing that we found out with our experience on the oral history program in particular, and it's something that I think archivists worldwide are struggling over, is the cyber world, is in the air, so to speak. And so, when we were trying to figure out what to do with our oral histories and how to preserve them in perpetuity, after consultation with the Library of Congress, we were told transcribe them into paper because discs need to be upgraded every few years. Tapes disintegrate. So the question is how we actually capture, if you will, what's in, the web in the air and get it into tangible form. Usually in the history world, that's in the form of a document. That's a book. That's a publication. That's like Stanley Patterson's Ice King book. It's all, to me, it's all very interesting, but does it meet our criteria? I ask other committee members who've been pondering this if they want to sort of join into this. Nancy, I can't hear you. I know you're talking.
I would agree with what my fellow committee members have said about the tangible resources. But I would also encourage Gary to continue the idea that he's doing, that it could blend in with the oral history section that we've started and collect other things that are tangible or intangible, and expand on the oral history to preserve the things of Nahant that you're talking about. So I think all of us are saying it's interesting, it's got possibilities, would encourage you to do that, but don't feel that this is where you're going to find the money to do it, and think you should look elsewhere for that funding.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else want to speak about this? Questions or comments?
And I'd like to close with the reality is cyber and physical simultaneously. And to not understand the cyber part of community preservation is kind of, I don't want to use. I'd like you all to think about that a little more, because, obviously the cyber is the future. And even the physicists today with quantum field theory have come to the understanding that the particle, the real thing, is not the real thing. The real thing is the field, is the formative structure of the field that creates the particle. So basically, everything is going to an understanding of integrating the cyber with the physical. And I understand this is a reach, but Nahant has reached before. And so think about it. We have the
Well, thank you, Gary. Yes,
input.
you've given us a challenge. I won't say otherwise.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay,
Okay, any other questions for me? I'm signing off.
very good. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you,
We'll-
Gary.
We'll be
Thanks,
following up.
Gary.
Cheerio.
Okay, folks. I had wanted to actually then have a brief run through of where we are in terms of grant applications. Do you mind putting the,
It's coming. It's coming.
thank you. It's all I have to do is think about it and it's in your hands. It's marvelous. It's
Right.
marvelous.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so when I made one little stupid error when I sent this out on Sunday, which I've corrected with this one. So running through this, we're going to be making some adjustments based on what we've heard tonight. So for instance, the Flash Road Recreation Master Plan may be pushing up to $50,000
Right.
as a total project cost.
Shall we do 55? How's that?
Sure,
Remember, we have the 11 already.
that's right. So then we're going to sort of push
Well, the
that
match,
down a
oh,
little.
I see. Yeah, total project cost will be 55. The
right.
match is, quote, match, unquote, is 11.
Yeah, and then our grant request
Where is
is
that? What column is that?
the one that says grant request.
Oh, yeah, right. There it is.
So that's going to run in at 40. Yeah.
Okay.
The Heritage Trail, I think what I was hearing tonight is something like, if the DPW does it, then it's the cost of materials, and that could be $10,000.
Right.
That we have a hardworking DPW, and I'm just wondering if the committee thinks that we should actually drop this number down or keep it at 20.
I think we should keep it at 20 because we keep adding more and more things for the DPW to do.
Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate your saying that, because we are leaning a
It's a good
lot
idea.
on that group. Yeah, let's keep it at 20. Give Zach and his crew a little bit of a breathing room. The Little League lighting at $100,000. That's a big stretch. And it is part of the Flash Road area. So I think for the moment, I'd like to keep it on the burner, but I think we really do need to look hard at this and ask ourselves, how does this actually relate to the ultimate Flash Road master plan?
So Lynn, quick question on that.
Sure.
So I haven't looked at the pricing on it, but doesn't the town receive funding from the fields being rented by outside parties? And would that cost come back to the town in some way? Or that, the cost of investing in that?
It's a good question. It was quite an interesting conversation with Tony, and I think his name was Dave Emmons, who was representing the Little League. They had really done some homework on this and had some some pricing proposals that were the basis of this. To me, one of the big issues is really the use of the ball fields. Some of it is rented. There is a group called, was it Come Swing With Me, Tony?
Swing Factory.
Swing Factory is one of the renters over there. But is that a meaningful form of rent, Tony, or is that just kind of?
Well, what it allowed us to do was not charge Nahant Little League anything. So Swing Factory actually paid twice as much for less usage. So we didn't charge. It was a way to subsidize our local league.
But the
to
league,
Jim's-
local league is also part of the Swampscott kind of network as well. So this field is being used by the Swampscott teams.
Well, they're all Nahant kids and Swampscott kids are integrated with each other on all teams now. But to Jim's point, we are limited now because there isn't lighting on how often we can rent the field out. With the lighting, it would expand our ability to rent the field and bring in revenue from outside, outside of the hot residence, which is
Tony,
always,
what's
which is always a
what's the
sweet
rental
spot.
fee, Tony?
Yeah, what kind of revenue are we talking about?
I could put together some sort of data for you on that.
Okay, that would be
I can-
helpful.
That would be helpful.
Other fields that have lighting, what type of revenue they bring in through their rentals.
That would be helpful. This was a thoughtfully put together application. Dave Emmons was talking about providing some in-kind services from his firm for the footings, for the lighting and so on. There were various attachments and, our application that showed, the idea of the fixtures, but it's a very substantial investment. We won't say otherwise. It provides 4 lights for the Little League field.
Lynn,
Yep.
I have a question. Years ago, the town did not cut the grass or anything. The Little League did all their own work. Now they're gonna put these lights up. Now, who's gonna pay for it, maintain the lights? Is the town gonna do it? Because I've been told the Little League has their own little cooperation and fundraising to cover all their costs.
Mhm.
They do, Dave. So one, the cost of lighting is significantly lower with these high efficiency LED bulbs. But we have a recreation revolving account that if, rentals of the field would go into that account, we could pay for any electricity bills that are metered from that field out of that account.
So my other question is, other people besides the Little League come over to use this field. Now, I know they haven't paid for the use of it. I mean, how can we control that? How can the league control it? Because there's been a lot of games there that people play softball there and everything. It's not just a Little League who uses the field.
I don't know if that's true. It's a grass infield, so I've only seen Little League. I've only seen the Little League or, like Swing Factory, groups that have gone through the rental process. A lot of those, those types of groups, they need, because of their own insurance requirements, they need to have sign off from the town. So, and typically those types of groups, like there's a whole schedule involved with it. They need to have things ironed out. They don't just kind of like drive around looking for an empty field.
I have one more question and comment. As you know, as a Little League field on Saturdays, the DPW has to lock the gates because in the past they've been parking there so the trucks can't get out and stuff like that. There's all these kids running around. I don't think there's enough parking down there, and I wish the Little League could address that.
Yeah,
That's something that I talked at length about with Ty and Bond Brian, I keep forgetting his last name, Brian something, today with the recreation master plan study. I talked about that at length. You know, and he agreed, he had a similar sentiment, Dave, that, you know, clearly just from looking at the pictures of the area, he could tell there wasn't sufficient parking. So that would be an element of discussion with the master plan. I don't think, lighting, I don't think is going to, I don't think lighting could be held up because of the parking issues, because you still can only use the field for the same amount of people at a given time. So it's not like we're gonna have a ton more parking. It's just it'll be spread out. So I don't think that but it's definitely an issue. And part of my comments was about securing that DPW space from,
Right.
the public being in there. There's a major liability issue for the town with people walking through the active yard.
Yeah, it's all sort of leading to why the Flash Road Master Plan is so important. So thank you, Dave. Other comments? We're just running through this tonight because we're going to actually then next week be diving into more particulars. But I think the Little League lighting is one that we were expecting to hear more about, possibly fundraising by the league for the lighting. We were looking to see the value of the in-kind contributions. And now we're at the question about what the rentals might mean.
I'll
is
get
being
data
raised.
about revenue
Yep.
for you. I'll just a 30-second comment on that. We have spent a lot of time and are going to continue to spend a lot of time on finding revenue sources for the town of Nahant that don't come from solely Nahant residents. It's a necessary exploration that we have to take on because the town needs additional revenue streams, and we're trying to find ones that don't come from your wallets. This
Yeah.
is one of those things. It may not be massive, but every little bit helps. Trust me, from knowing the budget, every little bit helps. And there's a trickle down effect. When people come here and spend a few hours on a weekend for a tournament, they run down to Captain Seaside, they stop by Tides, they go to the golf course, they buy lunch here, then we get them on a local meals tax as well. So it's a major revenue opportunity for the town.
Tony, can I stop you? Tony, please. What is the maximum amount that anybody has ever paid for one ball game?
The Swing Factory paid us $1,000 to rent the field probably 4 times.
So $250.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the high end.
No, that's probably not the high end.
Oh, it isn't the high end.
No, it probably isn't. It's probably much higher than that.
We have been
Okay.
paid more than $250 for a game. By somebody.
I'm telling you. Let me get the data for you, Paul.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
get
All right.
get the data.
Okay.
Let's
All
But
right.
even at that number,
Yeah.
that's $1,000 that we didn't pull from Nahant residents. That's $1,000 that goes back into that field.
Okay.
Okay, so
Uh,
I'm gonna
right.
I'm gonna say we're gonna let you help sharpen that argument, Tony. And if you could do that, because this is a significant, when we go run through this dashboard, we'll see this is a significant ask in our overall our overall series of grant requests. So if you could get back to us.
I'll
Yeah.
get the data. But
If you could get,
that we got to be open-minded about that idea, about that concept.
we will do our best. Okay, The next one on the dashboard is the housing development location study under the community housing category for $60,000. Then we would be dropping down to the next one, which was Gary Dinas's cyber proposal. I would suggest that this be eliminated from this as a grant request. I don't eliminate it as an interesting, innovative idea, but it doesn't seem to me to be consistent with community preservation allowable costs. Can I hear from anyone else on that?
I agree, Lynn.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah, I agree as well. Lynn, without getting into a big discussion, just straighten me out here. Isn't this the sort of thing that Gary could go to the Nahant Historical, the Historical Society and say, let's tune up our archives to include something as participatory as these individual memorials with software and storage. Is there anything preventing him from doing that? Is that the sort of thing they can do?
Nothing at all. I think Nancy suggested that, that might be a conversation, but that's not something that's not for us. I mean, there was a suggestion from Michelle Capano that, she put him in touch with another potential funding source. So,
okay.
but I think in terms, I hate to be narrow about this, but I think we have to be focused on what we can, fund. And this doesn't seem to me to meet those requirements or those categories. But I think Jimmy just agreed with me. Paul, am
Yeah, I agree with you as well.
I agree with you, Nancy.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lynn.
I agree too.
And this is Ellen. I've been relatively quiet, but I not only agree with you, but I don't like that you said that you were being narrow-minded, because I don't believe that's the case.
Not at all.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. I'll sort of take that off the record. I'm not narrow-minded. I'm just actually trying to be focused on what works for our program and for our accountability to the town meeting and the legislation. So let's take that off the list right now.
Now, how do you want to do that?
Just exit out. Just take it off the grant request. Just out of that column. You can leave it on there. Just take it out. I'm just trying to get to a subtotal.
Okay, well,
So just
take that.
delete
take that 0.
Take that 0. Yeah.
All right.
And then with the next one down, which is the limited mobility access,
Right.
I'd like to take this to 0.
Okay.
And then we'll just keep going down because we hit it again. We're not going to lose that idea, but we're going to, okay, we've already lost the Nahant First and Tennis is not being eligible. This is actually the first time that I've seen grant applications come in where they're not eligible. And we're going to need to talk about how we help people more with that.
On it.
On it. I know you are. Nahant Open Space and Recreation, Bailey's Hill Complex. The number that I got from the grant application is a little bit different than I picked up in the meeting with Trish Aldrich, which was closer to $84,000. So I'm just going to want to sort of double check that. But for the moment, Paul, will you write in for $84,000 under that grant request?
Into this column?
Yes, the one that says grant request. It's column E.
All right.
Okay.
84, yeah.
Running down, we have the Bailey's Hill gazebo at 30,000. We're going to want to talk about that, but let's leave that where it is. Oops, now we're getting to the number 10, the Town of Nahant beach mats and access. And I think we want to put in $50,000 instead of 25,000.
Right.
Lynn,
Yeah,
on that one, is Tony gonna come back with the proposal
Yeah.
of a match grant? of the
yes, he's going,
25?
he's going to get more specific on this. Right now, Dave, I'm just trying to give us an
Yep.
overview, but we're going to have to chunk through this. This is just to get our feet on the ground for tonight. All right. Flash Road
Yeah, whoa,
splash
whoa, whoa.
pad
Just a
had
minute.
already gone away.
No, something happened here.
It's not on the screen. It's fine.
No, no.
Oh, you can't do the
happened.
50?
Wait a minute. Let's get here. So this was beach access, and I had changed that to 50, and it
Yes.
didn't like it. You
Try
might
it
have.
again.
All right. So that's 50.
Okay, you're good.
Did it come through?
Yeah.
Yep, it's fine.
Oh, there it is. Okay, now, but
You don't have
we're
to
not,
chuck
we're
that.
not
Don't
gonna,
touch.
we're not gonna fuss with those at all, right?
Exactly. I'm just going to
Okay.
try to get our grant request down.
All right.
So then Town of Nahant has already ditched the splash pad thing.
Oh, it has? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
The Johnson School Boulder Scramble, we've got in at 15,606. We can leave that alone.
Okay.
And then now we get into the next lot, which are the things that we already are obligated for, the administrative as well
Right.
as the bonds.
Right.
So let's see if we get lucky and you get a subtotal on this.
It would be purely
Let's-
fortuitous. All right. We're still here with the cemetery. Does that look right to you? 668, 669?
No,
No. Okay. Well, sorry about that. Nothing I did.
yeah, you'd have to actually just recheck the formula.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what it is. It should be just some of this. But
Yes,
You know what it is. So are these the right figures in there? And then I'm just gonna have to send it back to you and you're gonna have to check the formula because I don't know what it is.
Paul, where you entered the 50,000, there's an extra space. in
Okay.
there.
you
Hold on.
got,
Oh,
you got a
right.
little,
Okay. All right. That looks right now. And it didn't change anything.
no, I'll just have to re-enter the
You'll have to
formulas.
do it. I don't have the touch. Sorry.
Just give me a moment, please.
Okay. Sure.
Almost there, folks. Okay, so I get 565, 608, 606 as the subtotal under grant requests.
That's about right, I think. I did not in my head, but that's where I was. I was 5.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's made up. Okay.
Well, sometimes, you have to just rejigger the formulas to
I don't know.
reawaken them.
No
So
idea.
just to give context to everyone, just a reminder that we have from this year, we're expecting $446,068 from our 3% surcharge based on a 50% state match. We have accumulated reserves of $169,664, and that'll probably creep up a little bit with some interest on that. We also have a housing reserve of $53,098. So we have a total of funding, excluding that housing reserve, because remember, we have to keep that separate, of $615,732. So I think the question we have is really sort of returning to those grant applications for deeper look, making sure that we feel satisfied with both the scope of the request, its benefit to the community, it's meeting the requirements of the Community Preservation Act, and is it a sound investment for our town meeting to make? And so that's the discussion that I'd like to turn to next week. We'll send this dashboard out for you to look at more closely. You all have copies of the grant applications. We're getting further clarification from Tony on, the Flash Road master plan proposal will be resubmitted with the information that we heard about tonight. We'll get more information from him on the Little League and the kind of revenue production that might be associated with that, as well as more from the Little League itself about their ability to make some contribution to that lighting package. It's a substantial investment. I won't say otherwise. So, folks, any questions or comments about what we've got in front of us?
We have a hard job, but I just also wanted to make sure that we have our meetings set up. And so I was wondering, can't we just request from the town every single Monday night we want?
We've already done that,
date?
Nancy.
Okay,
That's
thank
exactly
you.
what we've done.
Thank you. I didn't know that.
Yep, that's exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to do that last week, but my computer crashed, and that's why we got into trouble. Or I got into trouble.
Yes, but thank you for making this work for tonight, Paul. So we will be meeting again on Monday. Gosh, what is that? That is,
It's
Before.
March.
I know it's March. It's March 5th.
It's 5th?
It's March 5th.
No, it's March 4th.
March 4th.
No, it's March 4th.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't flip the right page. It's March 4th. Oh, that's better. Because I've got a big thing due on March 7th, and I feel better now already. If you can get me another day or two, Nancy,
No,
I'd be really happy.
That's it, Lynn. No, that's it.
That's it for me. Yeah. Gosh, guys, this is tough. All right. Well, thank you all. I've been just double checking the chat to see if I had anything that was coming up. I see that Mark Cullinan left, so that's what I've got in the chat. But I thank you all for your participation tonight, and I'm going to be looking for that golden motion. Anyone ready for it?
I'll
I
make
move
a
to
mo-
adjourn.
Gosh, Dave, that was you and Nancy were in tight competition on that one. Thank you. All those in favor? Nancy,
Aye.
Paul,
Hi.
Ellen,
Aye.
Austin,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Good.
Chair
Okay.
says aye. So thank you all. Thanks for your patience and your participation. It was
Okay.
very
Thank you,
important.
Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay.
Thank
Bye
you. Good
all.
night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Be good. Thank you.